Let's talk about this New Lines magazine piece written by Michael Weiss and James Rushton. Now, I know about Russia's campaign of bombing attacks, not only in Ukraine, but in Europe. It was really early on in the war when Russia tried to hire Ukrainian refugees to blow up the Polish railway system into Ukraine to cut off aid. The use of refugees as a weapon of war is something that Russia's tried. And this hasn't just happened in Poland. This has happened in other places across Europe. And it isn't just Ukrainian refugees. It has also been the citizens of foreign countries. As we've seen sabotage in the United Kingdom. We've seen factories blown up in Europe. We've seen attempted assassinations of German defense CEOs. And we've seen a huge continental campaign of sabotage and bombings and burnings and arson attacks. I know the UK experienced some arson attacks. And this campaign sometimes uses Russian agents, sometimes as Russian agents getting useful idiots, and sometimes it's something even more nefarious than that. And in the case of what's been happening in Ukraine, we're talking about the use of teenagers for bombings, for placing bombs under cars and suicide bombings. Now, to be clear, it's not that they're radicalizing these children into being suicide bombers and they've convinced them that Ukraine is evil and all of that. What's happening is, and this is really gross to talk about, but I have to just describe it as it is they get some amount of dirt on some youth or trick them in some way to picking up a package. I'll give the example of a young girl, of a young 13-year-old, 14-year-old girl, who the Russians were able to get her nudes, which you would call CP, by the way, in this context. They got that, and they used it as leverage against her to say, if you don't go and grab this package and move it to point A, and then move it to point B, then we're going to release this all to the public. And all your friends, all your family, all your teacher, everyone who knows you will be able to see you degraded, and we're going to ruin your social life. We're going to ruin your life. And so this young girl, 13, 14-year-old, scared that her life would be over and that everybody would see this, went, grabbed it, moved it, and thankfully, it was caught in time. But this is just one example of what has happened. And this is not the only example of what has happened. Michael Weiss and James Rushton do both good work. I interviewed James Rushton for a drone documentary I'm doing in the near future. Went out and drank with the man. He's pretty nice. Michael Weiss follows me on Twitter, which, I mean, of course, is always the smart move. But I wanted to read some testimony from this because just the headline, Russia's new weapon, child suicide bombers, just threw me for a loop. But I mean, how do you describe this? Just after 2 p.m. on Valentine's Day this year, a middle-aged woman in a bright red coat walked over to a group of Ukrainian soldiers standing outside a cafe in the city of Mykolaiv. The soldiers, who were just finishing their lunch break, stood in a group chatting and clearly didn't think much of the woman as she placed a bag she was carrying on the ground. Within seconds, the bomb hidden inside the bag was remotely detonated, killing her and 3 of the Ukrainian soldiers instantly. As first responders rushed to the scene, a coordinated message campaign got underway across Russian media, including the state-controlled Idvitsa newspaper. The blast, it was suggested, was the revenge of a distraught mother, driven to murderous insanity by the grief of losing her only son to the war after he was forcibly mobilized by the Ukrainian authorities. The soldiers who were killed, the messaging campaign added, were the military recruiters. As is the case with most Russian influence operations, nothing stated were true. The killed soldiers didn't work for any recruitment offers. They were all members of Ukrainians' demining corps. So these are the people who go out and disable bombs, disable mines and such. The bomber, a 42-year-old mother from the city of Horishny Plavy in the Poltava Oblast, had left her very much alive infant child in a nearby hostel, sorry, when she left on what became a suicide bombing mission. Recruited on the social media platform Telegram, which despite its Russian ownership is still ubiquitous in Ukraine, she was not aware of her lethal cargo. Her Russian intelligence contact told her merely that she was delivering a large group of money to a certain location. The bomb had been prepared by a group of teenagers, aged between 14 and 17, also from Poltava. They built the device under instruction from the Russian handlers and handed it off to the unwitting transporter. Russian intelligence tracked the woman's arrival at the target site and detonated the package remotely. Nearly a month later, one evening in March, two teenagers, one 15 and the other 17, were walking near the railway station in the city of Ivano-Frankivsk, and a part of western Ukraine largely spared from the daily carnage of war, when the improvised explosive they were carrying exploded. The older of the two was killed instantly. His younger friend was hospitalized with severe injuries. The device they had been carrying, which they had assembled under the supervision of the Russian handlers, had been constructed with GPS tracking and remote detonation, as was the case with the bomb in Mykolaiv. As the two teenagers walked closer to target, the Russian handlers, who had initially recruited the pair with the prospect of earning easy money for simply making and planting the bomb, according to the Ukrainian security services, called in the detonation. The teenagers hadn't realized they were going to be part of the butcher's bill. So this is not a new tactic. This is not a new tactic. As we talked about, there were the attempting bombings in Poland, the attacking of the railways, the arson attacks, and other intelligence attacks that we don't know were done by necessarily civilians and such, but people were recruited to do these attacks. But the use of children as suicide bombers, how more evil can this get? I mean, I don't want to, I feel like I want to spare you guys the moralistic language of telling you that handing bombs to children and then blowing them up is evil. But not only to do this, but then to lie about these people, to ruin the life of that infant that they killed the mother of, that ruin the lives of all those deminers who their skills could have been put to use when this war is over, removing mines from the backyards of babushkas who have things that could kill them and their families like 20 feet from their backyard. And I've been there. I've seen TM-62 anti-tank mines get dragged out of people's backyards. I've seen the pedal mines just 30 feet away from the front porch of where people are actively living. These skills are desperately needed in Ukraine. But the Russians want to eliminate them so bad that they're willing to do suicide bombings and then lie about it, to not only suicide bomb, but then to take that and make it a propaganda effort where, hey, we made this child motherless, we killed this woman, we killed all these deminers. You know who's really at fault? The Ukrainians. She was a distraught mom. She then write a sob story to make it like, oh my God, she was victimized by the Ukrainian. Her child was an infant. I'm sorry, the infant's not going to be not drone dropping infants in enemy trenches with a knife saying, good luck. You've got Ukrainian blood. You're a warrior from birth. No. This is pure evil. This is pure evil. I don't know how to describe anything else but this. They said they were coming here to liberate people. They were coming here to save Ukrainians who are just really their little Russians. And then 3 years later, what are they doing? They're handing bombs to the children that they said they were going to liberate and blowing them up as suicide bombers. They're behaving like ISIS. They're behaving like Al-Qaeda. They're behaving like some of the worst terrorist organizations in the world. Do you guys think that a government that would organize this is trustworthy? Do you guys think that a government that would organize this can be negotiated with in good faith? Do you guys think that a government that would organize this, if they agreed to a ceasefire, if they agreed to a peace deal, would abide by those terms and not use, for example, telegram operations like this to still assassinate this, bomb that? We just saw Stranenko. Sergei Stranenko. I don't know if you guys saw this. This is a big story in Ukraine. Some of you guys might not be familiar with Stranenko, but this guy is a huge fundraiser in Ukraine. He fundraises a ton of drones for the armed forces, a ton of drones. He is 100% the most famous Ukrainian volunteer in the country. A woman, as he was walking to his car, took out a pistol and just tried to like shoot him in the back of the head. This random woman. Let me show you the footage of this. It's wild. The only reason he's not dead, he was injured in the attack, is that one of his guards, which I believe was part of the SBU, the security services, actually tackled her in time before she could clap him and not just injure him and make him no longer with the land of living. Let me show you this footage. Now, we don't know how this woman was recruited. We don't know if she was like a deep plant, like Russian asset, or if she was recruited on Telegram. But these types of attacks are happening quite frequently. In fact, I would say that they're increasing as the Russians are trying to get their intelligence tendrils deeper and deeper into Ukraine. This is what they're going to use them for. And so let me ask you guys some questions. When the Ukrainians make decisions like banning the Russian Orthodox Church, which has been used as an intelligence asset by the Russians, from their perspective, they're protecting their children. They're protecting their country from those that would do this. The head of the Russian Orthodox Church said that going to Ukraine and killing Ukrainians, if you do that as a Russian, you'll go to heaven. It's like a quick trap. It's like a fast pass to heaven. He's talking about it like how jihadis talk about martyrdom. If you are a Ukrainian, this is what you're trying to protect yourself and your family from. This is evil. I try not to like dip myself too much in the moralistic language on this, but I have no other way how to describe any of this. If you want to see what the woman looked like, by the way, here you go. And there's the pistol. I don't know what to tell people to make them listen, because anybody hears this, they're immediately going to be filled with immense disgust. It's a question of getting this message to people. This is why when people talk about occupation not necessarily being peace, if you have mass torture facilities, if you have these types of assassinations going on, that's how is that peace? If you still have child suicide bombing, I can't believe I have to say this, but any peace deal has to cover child suicide bombers. It has to cover the fact that the Russian government cannot just recruit Ukrainian children to put a bomb in their backpack and walk next to a general and explode. It's like a car bomb. And look, the Ukrainians do bombings that can be dangerous, like car bombs and stuff. I have never seen the Ukrainians use a child as an explosive carrying device. There's a difference between a risky attack that could come with civilian casualties and a guaranteed suicide bombing designed with the knowledge that you are going to kill children in the pursuance of your war goals. These children that you said you wanted to liberate. Also, this also is another reinforcement for the idea of there's a reason the Ukrainians want all those kidnapped children back. Because if this is how they're treating children in Ukraine, how much are they going to respect the Ukrainian children that have been stolen to Russia? Still have yet to make any progress on that in negotiations, as we're conceding this, that, and the other. God, this is so gross, man. I don't know what else to say about this. This is horrific. But this is how Russia conducts war. We need to understand exactly what this war is. We need to understand exactly how horrible it can get. That there is nothing that the Russians won't do when it comes to going to new lows if it could give them an edge on the battlefield. And stuff like this, the breakdown of Ukrainian morale, something that's been very sturdy, that's what those types of bombings are meant for. The ones with the mother taking that bomb to those deminers and then creating that fake story around it. And of course, assassinating high-profile Ukrainian generals with children with child bombs, that has an advantage to them. They could, I mean, if you're a soldier and you're walking next to a 12-year-old with a backpack, is your first thought gonna be that's a threat? Is that how Ukrainians have to think now? They see a child with a backpack, and the Ukrainian soldiers have to cross the street because they don't know? If the Russians had told that kid that, oh, there's candy in there, go pick it up. This is vile. This is evil. This is anti-human. This is anti-Christian. This is so morally degenerate, so horrific, that this is the type of stuff that any man of God, after reading this headline, would have to question whether some men really have souls. My God, man, child suicide, but I'm sorry, I don't, sometimes I'm lost for words.